looked pretty interesting. I was pretty happy. I got a new Spider-Man game, bit of Ratchet and Clank, so can't complain. And there we go. We are now on YouTube. So to start, thank you for everyone's patience. We're going to start off properly now. So I'll introduce my panel. So we'll start off with Martin. If you want to just introduce yourself, tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, and your connection to publishing.
Sure. My name is Martine Spaans, and I'm located in the Netherlands. And for the last 8 years, I've been hosting a publishing label called Tamalaki. And we focus on publishing games for women 30 plus. That's like hidden object, match 3, time management, and puzzle games. And we've been doing that in cooperation with our partner, FGL.
Great. Simon, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'm head of publishing for Quali. We're one of the leading hyper-casual publishers in the world. In the last 2 years, we've done over 400 million downloads. Our founder, David Darling, founded the company back in 2011. Before that, he founded Codemasters.
Bobby?
Hi everyone, I'm Bobby. I'm with Sega Europe. I'm in a team called Searchlight, which is Sega's incubation arm. And what our team does is we look to work with external indie development studios and create new original IP. And my job is to, generally speaking, when the world is not in lockdown, is to fly around the world meeting developers, finding that next partner for Sega.
Pierre?
Hi, I'm here from. Oh, sorry.
No worries.
Here and here, very close.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm Pierre. I'm with Koch Media Deep Silver for 7.5 years. We are a fairly large European-based publisher and distributor. We've been in the business for 25 years. My relation to publishing is that I've been doing that my whole life, and I'm part of the stakeholders at Koch Media who evaluate and sign off third-party products. We own a bunch of IPs and studio internally, but we work also extensively with third-party developers. Our focus is mainly on PC and console premium games.
And Nir.
Hi, so I'm Nir again from Crazy Labs, one of the top 5 publishers for hyper-casual worldwide. I'm there for quite a time now, doing consulting, especially around publishing, managing, and new studios from around the world.
Great stuff. So, as I said, the talk is about a foolproof guide to approaching a publisher. So I just want to start off by asking you all, what are the most important steps to take before even thinking about approaching a publisher? We'll go to Simon first for this.
I think it depends on your genre and the sort of market you're aiming at. Whichever genre or market you're aiming at, research it, compile a short list of the best publishers in that area that have had the most success. I think the other things I would say is do a lot of ideation and brainstorming, get a list of concepts in the things that you want to do and prototype the best ones. This is especially relevant in hyper-casual where we do a lot of fast prototyping. And once you've got that, start thinking about approaching the best publishers in your shortlist, because you will need to cultivate a relationship with them in order to progress past the first stage.
Yeah, but then anybody like to add anything to that?
I just would like to, sort of advise, think of all the things that a publisher might ask about and sort of prepare your answers for it, not to kind of, be caught off unaware. For example, common questions are, of course, like, how's your team? What's your timeline? What are your monetization plans? What your previous experience and things like that, and just make sure you have an answer ready.
Yeah, like at Sega.
Yeah, what I'd add to it, it's just a nuance, right? It's just a bit more detail to what Martin and Simon's already said, but the research aspect is really important, right? And really understanding who you're talking to. So like find articles that they've talked about what their activities are and really understand what their language is and kind of regurgitate that back to them to really make them see that you really are aligned in terms of where you want to go, right? And also, it'll be good, especially now that we're doing everything online, before a meeting, like prepare, right? Make sure that everything's working, that you've got the tools downloaded, whatever the tool is, whether it be Zoom or whatever, and rehearse with a friend and have someone hear you pitch it so you can actually like fail before the actual meeting in a way, and just practice and polish, right? And just get that pitch like really well polished. I think the like preparation and research, they're the two big things, I think.
I think I would add two things to what you guys said, and I fully agree with you. I think timing is really important, and you should ask yourself as well, okay, am I really ready to start talking to publisher, or do I need more preparation time as well? And often a third party opinion is always good, and then maybe ask another studio who had experience before if you didn't have yourself, and really make sure that this is the right time for you to go ahead with a pitch, because first impression always counts. And another thing that I think sometimes miss as well is ask yourself, like, what are your expectations? What do you want from these relations? That only fundings, or is that maybe more on the marketing side and so on? And I think if you, as part of your process to pitching to a publisher, know exactly what you want, you will get better results as well in the end.
Well, yes, sure. Hyper casual it's a different business model. We don't need you to be too ready. We want you to have many ideas that you can pitch, or even just send us a video with a short gameplay. We don't need the menus, we don't need the final art. Just send us ideas. If we like them, we can take you forward and guide you and mentor you until it becomes a success. We don't need you to waste too much time and to get frustrated about building big games, when in the end, after a few hours, we can already know that this game have a chance or not have a chance. It's not like a casual or hyper casual or a AAA game. When you work for months, you can work one day, make a good video, and we can now test it very fast.
So with that, what state should my game be at before I even think of approaching a publisher? I mean, I'll go to Pierre for this first.
I think it really depends in the situation you're in. I mean, if I hear near, it's a very different business model as well. And for us in maybe more premium or indie console and PC publishing, I would say that if a publisher has already rapport with us, it's someone we know, and that's maybe a concept that we've seen before, we don't necessarily need much very detailed information to start the conversation and be interested in partnering as publisher. Whereas maybe if it's completely new studios with a team that we don't necessarily know, there is a bit of know your partner job to be done on both sides of the relation as well. So I think there is no one size fits all answer on my side. Yeah, I think again, ask yourself, is that the right timing for you, and what do you expect from the relation? For me, I think are the two keys question to ask yourself and prepare yourself for.
I mean, if for the likes of say like Quali and Sega, what stage of the game does, if somebody comes to you, what stage does it have to be at for you to like consider it?
So for Quali, we will look at games, anything from a video taken from the Unity or Buildbox editor, all the way up to a fully playable prototype or complete game. Ideally, we want to see it as early as possible, because we guide our developers, give them a lot of advice in order to get it into a shape where we can sign it and then make it into a hit game. So one level or two levels demo is the right stage to start approaching a publisher. And I think that, I mean, I've run publishing for console and PC publishers as well as hyper casual publisher, which I'm with now. And it's always that stage when you've got the first idea of the core gameplay. That's when you can start approaching publishers and show them this is what makes this game fun.
For me, it's kind of what Pierre was saying, right? It really depends. Like, there isn't like a this is when. It depends, and the dependency is on how credible you will be perceived to be to deliver that vision. So let's say you're an established studio, you've been running as a well-oiled machine, you've already shipped a couple of games in the same genre, and the new game that you're pitching is essentially a sequel, right? Or it's in the same kind of, you're using the same knowledge and experience to deliver it. Then we will view your previous game as a prototype, practically, right? And just go, you know what, this is totally in your wheelhouse. You don't need a vertical slice or even a prototype to pitch to us. So we'll look at things really early. So to give you an example, like 2 Point Studios, when they were pitching 2 Point Hospital to us, the team wasn't formed. They didn't have a line of code. They didn't have a postcode or zip code for the studio yet. And we signed the game, right? Because they're really credible. On the other hand, if it's a team that's newly formed or it's not in their wheelhouse in any way, right? So let's say they used to make shooters and now they're pitching, I don't know, like anything else, like just not a shooter. Then we'll be like, can you really deliver that? Like, you're great at making shooters, but can you make this thing that you're now pitching, right? In that case, I'd like to see a prototype. So, but also talking, like kind of chiming in on what Simon said, we'd like to see things as early as possible. And it does take time for publishers to sign games. So it doesn't hurt to reach out early. And if it's like, look, this is perceived to be too early in this case, then we'll let you know, right? So I'd say reach out early and just gauge the temperature, and then you'd know what to do next.
Yeah, there's no harm in reaching out early, basically. Yeah. Martin, Nir, in your experiences?
Yeah, I don't have that much to add to it. It's just that, you know, I completely agree with the statements before, and I'd say it's about building a relationship. So, you know, again, also what Bobby said, there's not really a point for reaching out too early. You know, it's not just like a contract that you're hunting for. It's also like a long-term relationship that you're, you know, looking to build up. So the earlier you start talking, the more chances that by the time you do have like something that publishers can be really interested in and that's sort of ready for contract signing, I'd say the more familiar you already are, then the better your chances.
Well, I think hyper casual is like hyper relationship. We start to build something fast, a relationship, to test one game, to see what's going on. And then it's becoming more like Tinder. Show us, throw it. If we like it, we take it. We don't like it, go away. No one, you know, nothing to take personal. You know, if the game
Quite
is
to
good,
the left or whatever, yeah.
Yes, left, right, let's move forward. It's also a good mechanic for a game. But this is the idea. We want to do it fast. Don't take it personally. If the game is not good, it's not because of us. It's because most of the players don't want to play it. Let's move on to your next idea. So bring a lot of profile pictures and we will check every one of them.
That's good. I really like the description. Game development is basically like Tinder. So
yeah. Well, hyper casual, you know, AAA, it's a long term, you know.
Yeah, of course. So for you all, what would you say are the most common mistakes while trying to get a publisher to invest? Go to Martin.
Yeah, I would say asking too much or too little. You know, for example, having, you know, someone who is pitching a full-fledged RPG made in Unreal and they're asking for 50K or something, you know, you kind of know that's not going to work, and it shows that the developer probably, you know, doesn't fully understand what's all involved. And on the other hand, you know, like pitching something that looks like a hyper casual and asking for $100,000 is, you know, sort of the complete opposite. But both are things that I've seen pictures of that, so I've seen it happen. So, you know, ask for something like realistic budgets that kind of shows that you did your research and you kind of know what you're talking about. And you know, previous titles that you worked on. Also, a lot of teams are just newly formed, you know, like fresh out of college, and they're teaming up to you know, to start an indie studio. That's, you know, it's wonderful, but it's going to be really hard to then find an investor who, you know, will really sort of you know, put money on the table for that if you don't have a proven track record yet. So it's always good to have like something to show that you've done before.
Yeah, just open it up to the group.
I think believe in your game, right? Because you need to believe in your vision, but do not be blind to the advice, especially the publisher, because they will see hundreds, maybe thousands of games, and you need to have some conviction, because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a lot of passion and drive in a developer, but they will know better generally because they've seen so many games, they've seen so much data, and they generally will know the market a lot better than you will. One of the most common mistakes is a new developer trying to tell a publisher that they know better, and then it's fine to do that if you can explain why and back it up with data. but yeah, just don't lock horns with a publisher for no reason at all.
Yeah, don't antagonize them in the first meeting. That's probably good.
And it's not just about the game. Publishers are buying into a team, especially, I mean, even with hyper casual games that we do, we're looking for a long-term relationship. We're looking for teams that can produce not one game, but several games. So we want to be able to, when we find really good developers, to work with them for for years if possible.
Pierre, Neil, anything?
Yeah,
I think it's all about planning as well, and as Simon said, you need to know what you know, but you also need to admit what you don't know, and that's also why probably you reach out to a publisher, right? It might be funding, but you may admit very well that okay, I don't have the capacity of marketing and selling my game as a publisher would do, and I think that overall, I'd rather share a piece of the cake and make this cake bigger than just eat it myself. And that's what you should focus on when you talk to publishers. And I think again, I would come back to that, but building rapport is also very important. It's maybe not that easy when it's the first time, but take your time to do that. I think it's always paying back at the end.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, first, in hyper casual, we don't invest in a game. We make like partnerships with the developer. You can look on it more like it's not Kickstarter, it's more like a Patreon. We try to help them cover the cost along the way to bring them to transfer. As long as the game becoming more and more promising, we will deliver more and more money. But they have a lot of milestones that when they can check, we both check the situation. If it's look promising, let's go bigger and bigger. If it's not good looking promising, we can cut it, go to the next game. So come with like a list of games, a list of ideas, preferably with videos of those ideas, like gameplay ideas, and choose the right team. If this team could not work to the top charts, to be number one, it's not good. We want number one. So sometimes people bring a good idea, a game that if it will be a casual idea or hype or indie game, it could be great, but the niche is too small. So look for something that a lot of people will want to play. It's like the low common commodity between all of them.
Bobby, what's that one common mistake you see in the market?
I think everyone's really covered it. I'd say be confident, don't be arrogant, don't badmouth other people, right, on other people's games.
Sure.
Heaven forbid the person that you're talking to worked on that game in their past, right? And just generally speaking, try and be positive and talk about why your game matters and what you're looking to improve and why people should care about your game, rather than badmouthing other people's games. And I'd make sure that I know what I'm talking about, right? That you are the subject matter expert. If you've got a slide talking about the competitors' landscape and what the other kind of games are that's in the same space, play all of them. Make sure you really know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that sums it up very well. So I've got a couple of questions here. One from anonymous attendee who's been popular here. How do you protect your IP when giving the pitch? Is there any legal advice you'd give to independent teams? Does anybody want to take this? Martin?
Sometimes teams ask me to sign an NDA before I view the pitch, and it's fine with me. I see no harm in signing an NDA. But overall, I'd say, don't be too cautious. For example, at a conference, like when live conferences are like possible again, and you run into someone, you're not gonna like on the spot ask them to sign this NDA right here before you show it, right? It might be like the right opportunity for this right publisher to show it. Let's say just don't be too protective, because an idea is not really worth that much. It's the execution that is really, really, really worth it. So your idea might be brilliant, but as long as you don't have the right team and the right sort of thoughts behind it to execute it, that's what you got. So that's your asset. So I'd say it's safe to show it to potential publishers. Don't waste the opportunity.
And the feedback is super valuable as well. Sorry, Simon.
Yeah, Martin hit it on the head though. A lot of the less experienced you are in the business, the more you think ideas are the thing that's worth worth the money, if you like. But it is the execution and being able to deliver that idea in a way that everyone likes to play and it feels fun. When it comes to protecting your IP at that very early stage, you've got more to lose by trying to protect it than you have by pitching it to the right person. So always try and pitch it. I don't know of any publisher that will take an idea and rob it from you. We see lots and lots and lots of ideas all the time. So we may have seen something similar, and I will always say to them, I saw something like this 2 weeks ago, or I'll let them know that we have seen something similar if we have. Okay. But just so they know that there's other games out there.
I mean, you just mentioned there as well, you make sure you're speaking to the right people and everything like that. Obviously, it's a very common thing because people say, make sure you talk to the right people. Who are the right people?
Depends on your need, I guess. What are you looking for? If you're looking for, strong marketeers, or maybe publisher that specialize in some sort of games as well, like RPGs and so on. I mean, the answer can be very, very broad, I guess, and that comes back to asking yourself, okay, what do I really want from this relationship, and starting doing some research and a list of potential candidate for publishing relations, and talk to them and get feedback, and that will help your decision then.
Yeah. I've actually got quite a good question here, again from Mr. Anonymous. How do you break catch-22? To have a game with KPIs that's interesting for publishers without releasing the game first. As an indie developer, I'm soft launching a game to try and get the 50% day one retention required by publishers to become interested, but without the experience to acquire the right users during soft launch, and it's expensive to try. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Most publishers will test the game for you, well, especially in the hyper-casual world. So I'll talk from the perspective of Quali. We will test the game for you, and we'll spend our money to acquire those users. The initial test results may only require a few hundred users, and then if that's encouraging, then we'll spend more and get a few thousand users and keep ramping up, as Nia was mentioning earlier. Initially, our thresholds are fairly low. We won't look for 40%. We'll be looking for 25 or 30% or higher. We'll start working with the developer once it's above 25 or 30%. And as long as the CPI, which is the cost per install, is below about 40 in the US, 40 cents, then we'll start working with the developer.
Yeah, anybody else want to add anything to that? Are we happy with that?
Well, of course, it's different between hyper-casual and all the other models. So I think it's very important to understand which publisher you're approaching and what game do you want to test. But as Simon says, it's about it's easy. It's very easy for us to test a game, and it's cheap. It's not so expensive to test an hyper-casual game in the beginning, and the price is going up only when the game is becoming more promising. So again, for our model, it's not even a problem. You can come to us with no data at all. We will test it. We test a lot of games. The first test is our eyes, the publishing manager eyes. We can see something and very quickly to decide if we want to test it or not. Other than that, it's like going to elections. It's the players who choose which game to download or to click. So it's not exactly like in the other models where you need a lot of money to approach the publisher.
Mm-hmm. So what tools would you all recommend developers utilize to help convey their ideas, the business models and more across the publishers? I'm going to come to Bobby first for this.
Let me know if I get the wrong end of the stick with the question. But
yep.
At the moment, I think like Skype, Zoom, all of that, right? That's what you need to use. And then these kind of B2B networking events are great to find potential investors or publishers. I would make sure you've got like a PDF version of your pitch right? Because like PowerPoints can be quite heavy and hard to email, and PDFs are like much lighter, and kind of keeps the formatting and fonts or whatever, generally speaking. And always have like a short video of gameplay if you've got it, not like an hour-long, just like really long thing, right? Just keep it short, tight, that immediately gets across what the vision of the game is. If you've got a video, that's great.
Yep. Pierre?
Yeah, like Bobby, and again, I think it depends at what stage of the pitch you are, or if you maybe it's a second pitch to the same publisher, and you need to show more is maybe different than the first time around. What I found personally quite useful is developer commentary as well, where you get a full walkthrough. You're not necessarily available, or the first person that gets contacted at the publisher to review this pitch, but also to have a feeling from the developer himself on or herself, like what is the game about and what are we doing, why do we believe, and so on. Yeah, in general, I think it's good to also propose feedback from the developers and make it frictionless. So if you have like I don't know, Google Drive where you store all your stuff and people can comment directly, is quite useful. You can also get data yourself, like, okay, is my pitch actually being reviewed or not? And I find that useful as a publisher.
Yeah. Anybody else like to add to that? Simon?
Definitely use Google tools like Google Presentations, Google Docs, Google Sheets. Bobby was saying about your presentation being heavy. With all of those, you can just send a link and you can share. So it means that you could easily send it even with email limits. Build demos or prototypes depending on what sort of game you're building. But for casuals, we're building very fast prototypes. Use the tools available like Buildbox and Unity. Buildbox especially is very good at super fast prototyping. You don't even need to make fully playable games. Get something up and running that looks like a playable in the editor and then video it. That's a great way of pitching to publishers if you can capture the core moments of gameplay in videos. On that note, we recommend HitFilm Express, which is a fully specs video editor, which is free. It's a great way of putting together videos. And then if you've got large amounts of menus and UI and you need to pitch like things like wireframes, use something like Balsamic or something like that. And then diagrams, there's great free tools like diagrams.net for any diagrams and flowcharts. And then finally, so the business models and any finance stuff, like Google Sheets is where I would put that.
Yeah, definitely useful stuff there. Martin, any more? Or do you think we've covered it all?
I don't cover. I think it's. Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead first.
I think at least in the beginning, the simple as it could be, it's the best. 3 slides on Google Slides. Short video, animated GIF could be enough. The business model is very clear. We want to put more ads in your game, so we don't need to think about complicated things. Maybe later we will add in-app or something else, but for now, just the simple thing. We don't want you to be frustrated by trying again and again. So you want the trying to be very fast and easy for you, for the developer, so you can try more and more without getting frustrated.
Martin, anything more, or are we good with that?
Yeah, no, just to come in from a slightly different angle, kind of in addition. I mean, we always appreciate a vertical slice and art samples, because I mean, it might not be so relevant. For example, you make a hyper casual games when it's all about the mechanics, but for the type of games that we do, it's polished hidden object games and match 3 games. There's a lot that goes into the aesthetic of the game, basically just the looks. So it would be great to see also what your art team is capable of.
Oh, can I just add something actually?
Yeah, of course.
Simon was talking about, you could just provide a link, and that like triggered a thought. And when I'm using like a tool like Meet to Match, like during these events, right? Sometimes I just get like blank meeting requests with nothing really in them. And then I'll like look at the profile of the person that sent me the request and see if there's anything there before I decide whether I accept or reject, right? And generally speaking, investors and publishers, I think, only accept around 30% of meeting requests or less, right? We get a lot of meeting requests. So when you do send that meeting request through the tool, definitely try and provide a link to your pitch within that meeting request. It makes it easy for the person to know, is this a good match or not? Because basically, if I don't see the information, I'm going to automatically reject it, right? Because it's like, well, I don't know what this is. Why would I accept it? So yeah, definitely try and provide links to your pitch when you use these meet to match systems, and customize your meeting request, right? Well, that's what I do as well. When I send developers meeting requests, I write them a message, right, and say why I want to meet them, generally speaking.
Yeah, some very useful information there. So I'm going to skip a little ahead just because obviously time's moving on. Are there any tips you can share so developers know when they're getting a raw deal or being taken advantage of? Any particular steps or tells from a publisher that suggest that this isn't as good as it seems? I don't know if any of you have any examples, anything like that. Gordon?
Well, again, hyper-casual is different than the others. Crazy Labs is working with partners. So we are always talking about 50-50 revenue share or profit share after, of course, all the UA and other stuff. So when we approach, we want both sides to have the same interest in the deal. If you feel that you're not being appreciated, or the other side is doing something, you know, fishy, it doesn't happen in the big publishers usually, but the smaller one, or not known ones, it could happen. When you feel that you don't understand something, find someone else that already did it. There are hundreds or thousands of developers that already worked with publishers. Check with them. What is who was honest, who was clear with you about all the terms. Our agreements are usually so short, few lines, just to be clear about what we want to do together. And maybe later, if we're going into a publishing agreement, then it will be bigger, and still we want to do it as clear as we can.
From my perspective, I've ran development companies as well as publishing. So the key thing is obviously that there's headline financial terms, your revenue share, your advances and MGs, but look at what is deducted. Look at that publisher's track record, because a smaller share of a top hit is much more valuable to you than a big share of something that didn't have any success. Okay, so you need to balance that out. It's not just about pure financial terms. You shouldn't be making judgments. You need to also feel that you can work really well with that publisher and closely with the publisher. If you've got similar qualities between two different publishers and you get on well with both of them, that's when it comes down to just maybe some financial details. But you need to look at the bigger picture always.
Yeah, Bobby, anything to add?
Yeah, just network like mad, right? You want to network as much as possible, and because to understand if something is good or bad, you need something to compare it to. Like there's got to be a baseline, and to do that, you just need to network. Just talk to people, understand what the landscape's like. What is a good deal, right? Just get like a good feeling of what a good deal is within yourself, and like what some of the other people have been saying, like do your research, understand what the track record of said partner is, and how they've been treating their partners, how well their games have been doing, what their portfolio is like. Do they support the game post launch? Do they continue to work with these partners? Do they actually do what they say? They because what they say and what they do might differ. I completely agree. Like you don't get caught up on some little KPI, like, oh, this percentage feels low or whatever, right? It's not really about that. I think it should be more about, if I'm going into a long-term relationship with these people, what is that relationship going to look like? Are they actually going to add value to my project in the way that I want, right? And then think about, okay, when it gets down to the nitty-gritty, if you've got like 2 or 3 offers and they're, it's like, oh, which one should I go for? I think that's when you have to really go, yeah, I think that's a tricky one when it gets there.
Martin?
Not much to add, really. I think most things have already been said. One thing you can also ask for to kind of be reassured a bit more that you absolutely know what's going on is just ask for insights. you know, a lot of the sort of analytics tracking tools and stuff have good options to sort of, you know, share insights in how your game is performing. And, you know, the publisher might not sort of think of giving you access to that straight off the bat, but it never hurts to ask.
Yeah, anything else?
I'd ask them for the other developers that they've worked with. Ask them if you can speak to some of them, because sometimes that's the best way, is just go and talk privately to other developers that work with the publisher you're considering. And if the publisher's good, they'll give you their contact details.
Yeah, sounds good. Unless Pierre, anything else to add? Or?
Oh, yeah, I agree with all of that, and you know that's also something you can do yourself. Your own due diligence. You know, you take the list of recently released titles, something that fits with your project, and you go talk around and see what's been successful or not. And yeah, again, I think it's a question of expectation as well, and don't hesitate to ask questions early enough rather than you know, too late maybe when it's signed and the two parties have a different understanding and maybe the language in the agreement is not covering that. That can be also sometimes problematic.
Yeah, and as always, communication is key. When a publisher, this is a question, it's quite a good one. When a publisher agrees to take your game, will I know that they will guarantee to boost it to 10 million downloads? Since I can't take it back anyways, and I won't have share values to my company anymore since the game is given away.
No, nobody can guarantee a number of downloads unless they want to make. The only publishers that can do that are ones that are willing to make a loss, even if the game doesn't work. So, as the game scales, you need to, as a publisher, you put more and more money into it. It will, your audience, to begin with, acquiring users is quite cheap because you're acquiring the users that really like that game. But then the cost of acquiring those users will climb over time. And as it climbs, unless the game can scale, then you won't achieve 10 million plus or whatever the threshold is. The way we do it is we have constant checkpoints, and we share all the metrics and KPIs with our developers so that we can make decisions on whether the game's making enough money to go on to the next stage, if you like. But once it gets past a sort of a global launch level, which is around about the 10 million downloads mark, then usually it's supported for at least 2 or 3 years, which is quite longer than most people would imagine for a hyper casual title. And you continually A/B test and introduce new features over time to keep it fresh and keep the tail long, if you like.
Yeah, speaking about hyper casual, got another one. Are profits from hyper casual games usually one-off, or can they rely on it to get an income for for long term? I'm going to come to Nia for this. I thought you'd be the right man for this.
Thank you. Because we are making a lot of tests, and we are helping the developers to cover some of their costs along the way. So you can say you get an income out of it, of the tests, but it's not something that will make you rich. If you want to get rich, or if you want to get successful with hyper casual, you need to search for the hidden gem in your pile of ideas, and it takes time sometimes. Sometimes, life could be surprising, and the second try you get a hit, but usually not. So in this time, we try to help to cover the costs, but when the game becoming promising, as I said before, you can get a very good income even before the game is really profitable and start to deliver a good amount of money. So we try, some of the publishers do, other publishers do it too, try to help the developer go through the phase between the time we have a good game to the right time when this game becoming big money. And we will not, the test on the way are ensuring us, the publisher, that this game going to make a lot of money. Otherwise, we will not go to the next steps. So for sure that if you crossed all the tests and got into this publishing deal, usually it will be profitable in the end. So it's just about what you need to, how can you live to get enough financial solutions until the time that this money will come.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
If you're with us and you get past the global launch, it's similar to Near what's saying, you are then usually in a profitable sort of state, and it's that point where you get long-term large sums of money, which will which will finance your lifestyle and the company that your development company.
Exactly.
Yeah. We touched on this a little bit, but I want to try and get might be a bit difficult to get a proper firm answer, but we'll try anyway. Does having a publisher on board always ensure a better chance of success? Gonna go to Martin for this first.
I think that's one of those things that you cannot A/B test. It's not like you can have two versions of the game, that one you launch yourself and the other one you launch with a publisher, and you just compare those. It's not possible, and at least not in the mobile scene. So that is like a really difficult question to answer straight away. But what I always do say is the added benefit of having a publisher on board. It's like an extension of your team. So it's like you basically sort of hire a marketing publishing team to help you with making the game successful. That's all kind of the approach that kind of we go with it when we go into a partnership with a developer.
Bobby?
I'd like to think so. An emphatic yes from me. Yeah. And the reason being is you don't have to wear so many hats. You can focus on what you're passionate about and what you're good at, rather than trying to do something you're not an expert on, whether that be marketing, PR, or I don't know. Even if you like when you're innovating, quite often, because I work in PC console, right, not mobile, and you're working on these projects that span 2 years or more. And on paper, an idea might sound really cool, and you try it, it doesn't work. You need to scrap it and do something else, right? And as you go through this process, maybe you run out of money, and then you just have to ship something. Whereas if you were with a publisher, maybe they could have really known what's been going on and support you throughout, and you can ship a game that's actually really good. So I think it does impact quality in terms of making sure that you do have the cash flow to deliver your vision, that you can focus on what you want to do and what you're good at. And obviously the publisher will come with a lot of expertise and knowledge and skill set, and provide you lots of insight during development about how to maybe ensure that it is something that really resonates with that audience through testing and research. So yeah, I think absolutely it does help.
Pierre?
Yeah, I fully echo Bobby on that. And I think, if you want to be successful, you need to be good at three things, which is, I guess every time the same, whether you're in a hyper casual or in a premium console and PC. You need to be good at development, at marketing your game, and at selling it. And if you're not good in marketing and business overall, you most often are better off working with a publisher that can help you on those topics as well. And the last thing is also maybe the velocity at which you want to release your game. I think a publisher can really accelerate that as well. And I assume this is even more true than in freemium and hyper casual than it is on PC and console. But if you can afford waiting and paying, funding your studio and your project over a couple of years and marketing it on your own, then maybe that's the best choice. But sometimes it isn't, and I think publisher are not only funding partners, but very much also accelerators and can do marketing and business most likely better than small team can do it on their own if they don't have the time for it.
Simon?
I'd draw an analogy with when you're running your own house. You might have the time and money. With infinite time and money, you could do the gardening, you could do the cleaning, you could do your own plumbing, you could do all of that. But is that the best use of your time? I'd argue not. So same with developers, concentrate on what you're good at. Basically farm out everything else where you don't have that specialist knowledge. And a good publisher is finding someone that complements all of your abilities. So a publisher should do everything that you can't or you find difficult to do. So that the obvious things are sales and marketing, but we're like with Quali, we have sophisticated game analytics. We have really sophisticated A/B testing. You know, we will do all the monetization ad side for you. We'll even provide some additional programming resource to help you implement all of that. So that developers can just concentrate on purely on the gameplay, and that is where most developers want to concentrate, and that's where they excel, and that's how you move the game forward as quickly as possible. And so to echo what Pierre was saying, acceleration from finding a really good game to globally launching it, especially in the hyper casual market, is key, because you get lots of people trying to clone a good idea. And so you want to be able to move in weeks from you know, a successful testing of a prototype to globally launching, and being able to do that requires a lot of investment and a lot of people, and that's usually outside of the capabilities of most developers.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, as Simon said, this is hyper casual is different again. Sorry, I need to repeat it all the time, but you cannot succeed as a developer with your game in a hyper casual. It's just impossible. You need millions of dollars to take the game forward. It's a multiplying of the CPI costs multiplied by money, and to take it forward, you need a lot of money. So the money is not the thing. But today there are a lot of publishers in this game of hyper casual. So the developers also have their strength in this like equilibrium. And we want the developer to do what he can do best. We can mentor, we can help with game design, we can help with marketing, of course. We can help with UA, all the data, a lot of stuff that usually developers want to make games. They don't want to know how it's complicated to embed AppsFlyer to understand the data later on. You know, it's just not their job. So we can do everything around it and let the game designer make the game and the developer develop the game, and to bring the money to the table and still keep this 50-50 deal. Both sides doing the best to take it to the top.
Good stuff. I've got one more question before we open up to audience. Obviously, we've done a bit throughout, but I just want to ask a bit of a more positive note to end on, I think. Can you share some success stories? Possibly anything you or somebody else you've witnessed do something out of the ordinary, possibly took even a risk that paid off very well. Just to open it up, anybody?
I can start if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, Simon.
I've got a really long career, over 30 years in the games industry. So I'll pick one old one and one new one, I think. One of my first big hit games was LMA Manager on PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. Before that, football management games were sort of like interactive spreadsheets. And we took I thought we could make an exciting console game out of a football management game, and that's what we did. This was back in the day at Codemasters, and we produced a sort of the leading console management game called LMA Manager. And then more recently, I think we were dabbling in sort of hyper casual for about a year, and then we discovered some really good tech to do with drawing and machine learning, and we built a game Draw It around it, and it was quite a big technical challenge, and we put a lot of effort into it because we believed that it would be the next big hyper casual trend, and it worked out in the end. It's gone on to do 80 million downloads.
Definitely a success story. Anybody else? Yeah, anybody?
I can tell a lot of stories.
Sexy.
But, okay.
Go for it, Nick. Go for it.
Well, I think one of the amazing stories of the last few months was our game Soap Cutting, which started as a pitch. We got in a Google Sheet, as we told before, like 4 pages in a pitch. And it took less than 1.5 months for my team. It wasn't my job, but for my team, to take this PDF, to take these 4 slides, and to become a top #1 game on the charts. And it was because it was Christmas, and we want to do it before Christmas. And you know, the Apple Store is getting closed a few days before Christmas, so we had this deadline, like a real deadline, and we need to do everything fast to put it there in time. And it was a great feeling of satisfaction, if I can use the hyper-casual words, to see it on the charts, like becoming from a paper to a game in a few weeks. So this is, I think, one of the best interesting, exciting stories that I have from the last 3 months.
Yeah. Bobby, did you have anything?
Nothing sexy really, but like I did mention it earlier, and I think that is a good success story of 2 Point Studios, right? Where we signed the game really early, like as early as it could ever be, and managed to get the whole company behind the vision, and it's really paid off. Like it's been 2 Point Hospital's been really successful, and now it's gone on to console. It's doing really well there too, and you know, within a year of the release of the game, we acquired the studio, and you know, we've got like really exciting plans with the team, and so yeah, like that was great. I think generally speaking, Sega is a company that likes to take a bit of a risk, right, and likes to innovate and delight and surprise. And I think how it's managed to survive over the years, because it's celebrating its 60th birthday this year, Sega, I think is that it's got this mentality of wanting to always learn, right? And it's all right to make a mistake as long as you don't keep doing it. As long as you learn from your mistakes, that's the key thing. And so yeah, I think, yeah, sorry, it's not like a glamorous one, but
No, that was good. That was good. We'll go to questions now because we've got a few minutes. So why do we need to spend millions of dollars in marketing hyper-casual games? Why not just spend 50 to 100K a month towards growing it?
Well, it just don't work like this. Hyper-casual game if you want it to be successful, you need to take it to the top as fast as you can and let it stay there as long as you can, and then keep it live as much as you can. So if you spread it along a long period of time, you will see a lot of clones coming in. You will see other games that make a twist on your game coming in. You see different trends changing all the time. And you can see today that most of the games don't survive in the top charts for more than a few weeks, even if it's #1. So you have a short time to make the best out of your game, put as much money as you can in this time, and try to take it to the top for as much as you can. This is the only way to go with hyper-casual. It's not like usually we will not see sequels to games. We will not see prequels or DLC. It's not this kind of business. So if we have a chance, we do whatever we can to make the most out of it.
Yeah, I think we've got one more. Is a publisher partner essential to compete in any meaningful way as a mobile developer nowadays? Apart from being picked up by Apple/Google directly, it seems like it's very tough without deep pockets. So we did answer this a little bit, but I don't know if anybody else would like to answer that directly.
I mean, when I first got into iPhone games, I did a title which did nearly 10 million in organic downloads. I think it's almost it is impossible to do that now. And so you do need fairly deep pockets in order to push a game and get the exposure, and you need through user acquisition, advertising effectively. Most developers don't have those deep pockets unless they've had a lot of big hits behind them. So that's where I think you do need to go to a publisher that has access to those millions of dollars of advertising budget.
Martin, do you want to give us the final answer?
Yeah, as the person asking the question already states, it's very difficult, but it's not impossible. I have seen indie teams who really spent a lot of time building up a community around their game pre-launch, and have been quite successful with that strategy. And pre-launch, the pre-launch part of this is very important because they probably like spent a year like building up that community and constantly spending time and reinforcing sort of what they're sharing what they're working on. So it is basically like you're taking on an extra job, but by sort of building up that community and that fan base before you launch, that gives you a good chance, a sort of a good alternative to sort of try to be successful without a publisher.
Great stuff. Yeah, that's all the time we've got, unfortunately. But just first of all, I want to say thank you very much to all our panelists, Martine, Simon, Bobby, Pierre, and Neil. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to give some very useful advice. Thank you to everybody viewing today. There's obviously many more talks going on throughout the day. I'll be next up in about 5 p.m. UK time for Publishing Developers Exploring the Core Relationship. I believe Pierre will be joining me for that. There we go. Cool. So yes, thank you again and have a great day.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.